Okay, good afternoon. Let's get started. Thanks for coming. This is American Marketing Association. Some of you have attended our sessions. It's a pretty well recognized and well established organization nationwide, about 30,000 members, and they have 300 collegiate chapters. And this is one of the most active chapters in the region. We have won few awards, and thanks go to Dr. Tariq. She started the chapter some years back. We had a chapter in 1980s when I came, but after that it kind of disappeared. So we reactivated it, and we have invited many speakers from every walk of life, because marketing is applying to every place. And ag business is also very important. That's why we have this session. Dr. Almas was our speaker in data analytics last semester. Anyway, so let me open the floor. And these gentlemen, also very good colleagues and friends. I know them for a long, long time. And they will talk about the beef industry, which is very, very big, $90 billion plus industry. I have all kinds of data, but I will let them explain to you. And I will also like them to please ask them if they could introduce, because both are our graduates, and we take a lot of pride, and it's a wonderful thing that we see our graduates now on the stage. So let's give a warm welcome to our friends from Almas.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar, for your kind words. We are really pleased and honored to be here. With the AMA, that's the award-winning chapter, and we thank all the officers and Dr. Tariq for having us. My name is Almas. I'm serving as Associate Dean for the Paul Engler College of Agriculture and Natural Sciences. It's an honor and privilege for me to stand here and talk to you. I know some of the agriculture students, they probably have, and my colleague, they have already seen some of this stuff. But let me quickly go through, and I have passed two handouts. These are the recent current affairs going on about agriculture and beef industry at the national level. So I'm going to ask, after my presentation and after Dr. Lawrence's presentation, we are going to ask questions, and we'll give you prizes. The ag students and the ag faculty, they are not going to be participating in that because they already know some of the answers. You know that Paul Engler College of Agriculture and Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business, they have a very strong bond and relationship. So I would like to recognize our college leaders, because they were instrumental to bring Paul Engler gift, and that was the largest gift in the history of Texas A&M system for WT. And these were the two persons, Dr. Neil Terry and Dr. Dean Hawkins. We owe them a debt of gratitude because they were able to bring the gift, and that's why we are where we are now. So thanks to both of them. My presentation outlined a little bit about myself, and that's a really good journey from 92 through 2019, and I'm looking forward for another couple of years before I retire, and Dr. Westel is saying no. What is the economic impact of agriculture industry in the Texas Panhandle? So we are going to focus on 26 counties, as that's the heart and soul of WT. Beef industry and what is its role in the global food market. And of course, water, because we use water for raising the crops. Irrigated agriculture is very important for the economy of this region. And we'll finish with some concluding remarks with some take-home messages. Here's my journey. I came as a grad student in 1992. And you can wonder that, I'm a living example that I came as a master's student here in 1992. At that time, it was West Texas State University. Next year, the name was changed in 93. In 93, I was blessed with triplet sons, because my wife was saying that, you are going to US and what I will do, and then she had plenty to do. And she still blamed me that I was not there, during that time. The here faculty are so encouraging. Once I finished my master's in agribusiness and economics, I was encouraged by my faculty to go for PhD. I went to Texas Tech, finished my PhD and master's in statistics and PhD in agriculture and applied economics in '99. And then the day I graduated, the next day was Sunday, and Monday I was in Amarillo for my job as a postdoc with Dr. Steve Amerson. And in 2000, I was able to bring my family. So there's a lot of pain because when you are separate from family for 7, 8 years, so to gain something, because as we have heard that US is a land of opportunities, but you have to go through hard work and a lot of pain. So I was able to bring my family in 2000. I started as a faculty here in 2001 after my postdoc with Texas Agri-Life Research in Amarillo. So in 2001, I joined as assistant professor. In 2007, I had my tenure, and that's very important from faculty point of view. In between, in 2005, I have 5 kids, 2 daughters and triplet sons. So my daughter, eldest daughter, she graduated from Kenyon High School as a valedictorian in 3 years. And I'm so proud of her. And I tell my students just to motivate them that we need to work hard. So she graduated and she had the highest GPA among the 61 high schools in Texas Panhandle. And she went to medical school and now she is a pediatrician. She just got a job with the UT Southwestern Children's Hospital in Dallas. Then some of the international students, I got my citizenship. I was talking to Andrea and she had a question that, how long it takes. So it took me 17 years to become US citizen from 92 to 2009. My younger daughter, she had BBA from here, MBA from here, and also she is currently working, and probably she has just one more class to go for her master's in finance and economics. My 3 sons, they graduated in 2014. I was promoted in 2012 as a full professor of agriculture, business, and economics. And during that year, it was a great honor for me to be selected as a Fulbright scholar, and I went to Azerbaijan for my Fulbright scholar obligation. In 2016, it was a great honor for me that Dr. Hawkins picked me up as his associate dean. And in 2018, I served for a little bit, for the whole year, as interim dean for the college. And it's a great honor that after 18, 19 years, this year I was awarded a Regents professor, and that is the highest academic award for any faculty. And I'm really humble and honored to be listed as a Regents professor. Here's my family. I'm not bragging about my family, but it's very difficult when you have a large family from American point of view to get together. In 2017, one of my son, who is a police officer, he did his criminal justice degree from here, and he is a cop at Garland Police Department. It was his wedding, and it's a little marketing tool. My other 2 sons, they are still single, so that was the point. So now my actual talk. So you can spread the word, so. And I can give the number. What the seminar or the talk is about 3 things, about agribusiness, about beef, and water. So agribusiness to me, although we have a DVM, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree, but agribusiness to me is, any business is agribusiness because we all need to have to eat every day, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? And we have to clothe ourselves. So food and fiber, the demand for food and fiber is never going to go down. That's the importance of agribusiness. Beef, I would let Dr. Ty Lawrence talk about, but we all know that, what's for dinner. That's and this came up. This slogan started in, it's kind of coincidence that this slogan started in 1992 when I landed in Kenya by a firm, very famous firm. And water, of course, Mark Twain has said that, whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. And we have heard from the analysts that it will be pretty soon that there will be, water will be a very hot commodity just like oil in future. My talk is based on a publication. I have been co-author on this, the Agribusiness Impact in the High Plains. And it needs to be updated. We update this every 5 years. So this is the last time we had, this is the latest 2015. So don't quote me on the numbers because we need to update those numbers pretty soon. And the next updated edition probably will be coming next, not this fall 2020. This is the area we are talking about, 26 counties in the Texas Panhandle. By the way, I have done most of my research water related. I was able to bring almost $2.4 million to support our graduate students and to support our research program on the water related from Ogallala Aquifer and other resources from Texas Water Development Board and other agencies. What is the value of agriculture for this region, for 26 counties? The value, actual value of agriculture and livestock is 7.2 billion and it's increasing day by day. What is the breakup? Cash receipts for agriculture is about 6 billion and this includes livestock industry. Government payments about $138 million and agribusiness payroll is about 1.4 million. So total 1.4 billion. So total impact is more than 7.2 billion. But if we, and this is kind of updated table we have. Okay, so with the multiplier effect, the region economy, the regional economic impact is 9.4 billion and the overall state impact, the 25% cash receipts of all the agriculture comes out of this 26 county for the entire state. And if you notice that livestock and livestock products contributes, and this is just for 26 counties, and that is more than 4 billion and it's increasing. And if we consider the inflation for the last few years, because these are 2011 through 2014, and we take the average of 5 years, because some years due to drought there is an effect on the crops and the production. So as I said that we are going to update this, so close to maybe $15 billion impact, overall impact of agriculture industry, and majority of that is coming through the beef industry. As well as the dairy. Dairy is coming up and we have almost 52% of the dairy stock, dairy herd of the state in this area. So what is the significance? Of course, I have already told you what is the economic impact, but 82% of the fed beef is produced in this area. And overall, 35 to 40% when we count of the nation's beef is coming out of 150 miles radius of this region. And what are the reasons why we have beef industry so flourishing in this area? Number one, the environmental conditions are favorable for raising livestock in this. Number two, which is the most important factor, is that the water table in this area is very deep. Sometimes it's 700, 800 feet below. So there is less probability of contamination of the groundwater. And of course, the hog industry, 94-95% of the state's hog production is in this area. And other, as I said earlier, 52% of the dairy cows. Okay? And this does not include the private sector, the 53,000 employees. And the impact of agriculture industry is underestimated because no public sector employment is in this calculation, neither the impact of almost 15,000 farms and ranches. Now the other one is what is the impact of beef in the global market? So as you notice that, what do you think that the US is a nation of meat eaters or bread eaters? You see the graph? Per capita consumption is more than 270 pounds annually. And if we exclude the infants and little children, you can imagine that how much meat we eat. And in order to, and there is also the demand in overseas, in other countries, due to two reasons. One is the population is growing. Another one is, that's the more important, that their income is increasing. That's why now there are many consumers overseas, they are shifting from the cereals or the grains to the high protein or the animal protein, because now they have the affordability to buy that. And who is going to supply it? Another thing what has happened, as I said, that Thai has more detail on beef aspect, but the carcass weight has also increased through the time. So not only we are producing more, but we are also producing more per animal. And what is the number one reason why US is a food surplus country? What do you think? Is it land or technology? It's the technology, because we are using a lot of, we have resources, we can invest in R&D, that's why we have advanced technology to produce. Another important aspect is that agriculture is contributing towards the balance of trade deficit, because agriculture is the only industry that has the positive balance of trade, almost more than $10–15 billion every year, which means that we are exporting more than importing. And it has been increasing. And what do you think that, what was the reason? And this is what was the reason in 2004? Why the difference? There is a dip in the agriculture exports or the meat exports. Can anyone remember? In 2003, December 2003, there was a case of BSE in Washington state. And Japan, which is one of our major importer of beef, they put a ban on that. That's why that's the dip in 2004. And it took, I think, 6 to 9 months to get back to where Japan wanted us to export our beef. Top beef exporters, who are our competitors? We are only exporting, how much in the global market, but Brazil, Australia, India. What is the reason that India is also one of the exporter of beef? From religious point of view, many of the consumers, they don't consume beef, so they have to export to earn foreign exchange. Who are the beef importers? Japan, China. Of course, we also import beef from Australia, New Zealand, Russia, South Korea. Those are the major beef importers. Okay. Now the third part is water, which is my research. Here 93% of the water in this in 26 counties is used for irrigated agriculture, and we raise crops. And let me tell you that this area is already water deficit area. The grain we produce to feed our livestock, that can last only 120 days. So, and we call it virtual water. So we import grains from other states, we import water in the form of grains to feed our livestock industry. And our livestock, the fed beef, almost 6 million cattle head every year, 5 to 6 million. So water is very important input, and it takes about 1,000 pounds of water to produce 1 pound of grain. The feed grain, the feed conversion ratio, even if it's 5 or 6 pounds to 1 pound of live weight, and then 50% carcass recovery at the yield. So you need at least 10 to 12 pounds of grain to have 1 pound of Next time when you enjoy a steak, you think that how much water you are consuming. So here's the water used by sector. Irrigation, 93-94%, and livestock. There is some kind of misconception that livestock industry uses a lot of water. So, but actually the direct water use is less than 2% of water use. But the indirect water use, that's in the form of feed grains. So that's the impact, livestock industry. But we are already importing feed grains into this region. What is the economic impact? And this is the scenario. We have, my colleague and myself, in one of the research, we have analyzed that what will happen if we do not have irrigated agriculture in this region. And everything goes, and that's kind of extreme scenario that all of a sudden you are going to, but that won't happen realistically because the people who are unable to pump much water or reduced water, they're going to shift from high water use intensive crops like corn to sorghum or wheat or cotton, and then they are going to go to dryland cropping. But the overall impact, if we, and this is the extreme scenario, from all of a sudden from all the irrigated acres go to dryland, so shifting from the net impact is almost $1.2 billion. And then we have the impact on employment, about 12,000 people overall, if we shift from irrigated agriculture to dryland. Okay? So what is the message? Water is very important input, a resource for irrigated agriculture and livestock industry, because whatever we grow, we feed to our livestock industry because we are trying to have value-added products. Agricultural and livestock industries, particularly beef industry, beef and dairy industry, they play a vital role in sustaining rural economies. Beef industry and other meat industries, they play a significant role in our global agriculture trade. Okay? The future of meat market in US and abroad is encouraging. As I mentioned, the population is going to increase. It's still increasing, China, India, and other countries. Guess what? US population by 2050 is projected to be 450 million. By 2050, we are going to add, in a couple of years, 120 million people. Who is going to feed them? We need. I have given you two handouts. There is that's a little bit political touch. One is the presidential candidate, Senator Wong. She is saying that agriculture is not efficient and this and that, and we are moving towards imperfect competition because there is a lot of mergers and acquisitions. For example, Bayer and Monsanto, they merged together, but the industry is fighting back because they are saying that we don't need more regulations, but we need exports. Every time we export $1 billion worth of commodity, it's going to generate 10,000 jobs. So if we increase exports, we are going to increase jobs. Another one which is very misconception about the beef industry, the other handout, that just report, a research report came out in March, that the cattle industry is contributing towards greenhouse gases. That's a misconception. The overall impact of cattle industry is not more than 3.5% towards greenhouse gas emission. So with that, and that during these 2 weeks there is, I think, the canned food drive. So at the end, I would request you that it does not mean that we have been blessed with plenty of food and we have to waste food. So think about, because wasting food, we are #1 nation. We are #1 nation in many aspects, but we are also #1 nation in food wastage. Wasting food is wasting water and energy, because it takes a lot of water and energy to provide the food and other commodities. With that, I turn over to Dr. Lawrence.
I'll provide a few beef industry statistics as well, and then I want to talk a little bit about meat marketing, more specifically beef marketing. So, as a kind of a 50,000 foot overview of our beef industry and the importance to the region, I want to start out with kind of an overview of America. Today, we would have an inventory of about 37, 38 million cattle on ranches. So think an old Western movie that you might have seen, cows and calves out on the range. That's the bulk of our crop. That's where they start, out on a pasture and an environment much like you might see in an old Western. In addition, everybody in here probably is familiar with milk, fluid milk, and you like milk consumption. I'll say a product of that milk consumption is also the dairy calf. So think of a Holstein calf or a Jersey calf. They're also a big part of our beef supply, and we have about 14 million dairy cows in our inventory today. So it's not just the old romantic ranch that we might think about. Our milk supply is also a big contributor to our beef supply. So another ranch that you might think of if you drive up and down the road and you see cattle out in a pasture would be what you see right here. We move the weaned calf out of its original environment in most cases, and we sell it in the market to a secondary operator. And this person is what we call a stocker operator in the beef industry. And they're going to take the weaned calf, and those would be shown here, without their mother, and they're going to grow that animal on a forage operation. So in the upper left picture, that's native range grass, warm season grass, like you might see green in the summertime. And in the lower right, that's wheat pasture. So one of the many ways in which we utilize the crop is to plant the wheat in the early fall. In this area, that would be planted in August and September. And that crop will grow, and in about November through March, we'll put calves on it. Those calves will eat that green forage, and that's a means of utilizing that crop in more than one manner. So the calves will eat that all through the winter, and they'll grow and convert that leaf into muscle and fat tissue. And then later in March, those calves will be removed from that. That crop will finish growing, and then we'll cut wheat from the head. So that's a means in which the agricultural industry utilizes that crop in two manners. In total, there's not quite 17 million cattle that are estimated to believe in that segment of our industry today. When they're grown to a marketable weight, they're going to move to a feedlot. And we've got multiple pictures here to kind of get you to thinking about what a feedlot is. We have a lot in our region, but you might not be familiar with what we're doing. From an aerial perspective, this is kind of what a feedlot looks like. And you can think of every one of these pens as an ownership unit. So you might own a pen of cattle at the feedlot, and they might be all of the cattle from your ranch, or they might be cattle that you purchase from multiple ranches. And so they're little miniature ranches at a feedlot, if you will, and they're ownership units. And the cattle can come up to the bunk, and they can leave the bunk, and they can go to the water, or they can go mingle with other cattle. And in reality, they're going to spend about a third of the day eating, about a third of the day ruminating, and about a third of the day resting and relaxing. And this picture in the upper right, that's kind of the kitchen of the whole operation. If you're driving by, you'll see a mill, and fundamentally that's just a big kitchen. So we're going to make their diet in a feedlot on a regular basis, and they'll typically get fed 3 times a day. And I would say, in contrast to my diet, for sure, and your diet most likely, their diet is very tightly controlled by a ruminant nutritionist. And you would think of that as someone that is the ruminant or cattle version of a registered dietitian. Their diet is, in almost all instances, much better than mine, and probably better than yours as well, because it's extremely balanced for all the nutrients they need to grow. And then we're going to get to my specialty, and that's the packer segment. And we call ourselves the feedlot capital of the world, and not that Hereford and the Texas Panhandle is not feedlot capital, but something that's not as widely touted as we're also the slaughter capital of the world. It just doesn't come off the tongue the same. So we have a large capacity for harvest in the Panhandle. You'll see in the lower left-hand corner, 121,000 cattle per day. So that's in the entire country, 121,000. And locally, we're at about 20,500 per day. So we're a large portion of the slaughter that takes place in the country. And there's a harvest picture in the upper left, carcasses hanging in the cooler in the lower left. And then this is what a grader would look at when they're evaluating the carcass for prime, choice, select, standard, the quality grades that we market. And then at the end, the cuts will be broken down into smaller pieces. They'll be put into boxes, shipped all over the country and all over the world. All right. So just a little quick market analysis and value. Today's animal, on average, walks into the slaughterhouse at 1,340 pounds. It's worth $1.26 a pound, or about $1,700 each. So there's a relatively large investment in each animal. The carcass is 800 pounds. We get about $123 of byproducts. Anybody own anything leather? Have leather seats, a leather belt, leather shoes, purse, etc. Leather is the #1 byproduct of an animal. I will say there's been some significant change in the recent year. In fundamentally all of past history, the hide was worth about $100 in a raw form as it was removed from the animal. Today that's about $40. And the reason is probably around here somewhere. I don't know if I see it. How many of you own a pair of tennis shoes? Okay, I did see this young lady has white leather tennis shoes on. Thank you for supporting the beef industry. I'll say that I have 2 pair of tennis shoes at home, neither of which are supporting the beef industry because they're made of polyester and nylon. And as we've shifted away from leather tennis shoes to polyester and nylon tennis shoes, the value of hides has fallen in less than half of what it was about a year or more ago. In addition to that, there's all sorts of other byproducts that are part of that animal. Every day we produce about 72, 73 million pounds of beef, and that is just a little bit more than 1/5 of a pound per person per day in this country. However, the actual value is less than that because we ship 15% away, as Dr. Almas clearly indicated. And here's where that product goes. Our #1 trade partner for beef is Japan. #2, South Korea, then you see Mexico. #4 is a little bit of a curiosity because it says Hong Kong, parentheses, China, and then Canada. So if you look at Hong Kong, it's a small island. And if you do the math, you would think, wow, those people eat a lot of beef. Like, they eat more than their body weight in beef, frequently. In reality, the beef is sold to Hong Kong and it is imported into China in what we call a gray market. And so you'll find American beef and other proteins all across China, even though it wasn't sold directly to China. It's a market that ends up there. In total, about $8.3 billion is exported to all countries across the globe, those being the top 5. In addition, we're also importing tremendous amounts of beef. This stuff that we export is primarily 2 things. #1, it's very high quality meats. Think prime, certified Angus beef, highly marbled, highly sought after meats and beef for persons that can afford it in all of those countries. In contrast, the other big thing we export are offal products. How many of you are big tongue, liver, sweetbread, stomach, intestine eaters? I saw 2 hands go up. Not many. And you don't see a lot of that in our retail markets. So we ship very high quality meats and we ship very, I won't say low quality, offal products to other countries. We also import almost the same volume of meat. Technically we're a net exporter this year, but we import a ton of meats to supply our craving for hamburgers. Yeah. So many cull cows in Australia, Argentina, Guatemala, Costa Rica, we buy that lean beef from the cull cow, we bring it here, blend it into products that we already have here, and we sell it as hamburgers. America has a fascination with hamburgers, tacos, other products that need lean ground meat. And so we're a net importer of lean ground meat because we don't produce enough. And I'm going to switch into marketing a little bit for the rest of this. And I want to start with traditional beef marketing and then move into more recent and vogue marketing. So if I go to the store today, I can buy USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Some of you know exactly what that is. Some of you probably have no idea what that is. And that's a very important marketing point between our feedlots and our meat processors. And there's value associated with every one of those terms. Those are lesser and lesser and lesser meaningful to today's consumer. I'll tell you that Prime is the pinnacle of our quality system. Choice is kind of standard everyday product, and Select is a leaner product. And each of those has a unique market, but the terms don't mean what they did to your parents and your grandparents. So beef marketers figured out, hey, we need to brand this product. And we need to market it in such a way that we can attract consumers who aren't just looking for that term Prime, Choice, or Select. And the most famous and well-known of those is shown up here in our upper left corner. You might have heard of Certified Angus Beef. That's a product that was promoted and still is housed today as part of the American Angus Association. And it is meant to brand the Angus product. I will say that that has worked fantastically well, arguably the most sought-after brand in beef and the best beef marketing program ever. Such that many other breeds that were traditionally red-haired cattle have allowed black genetics in to change their hide color to black, which is one of 10 specifications to be sold as a Certified Angus Beef brand. After that, some other packers thought, you know, this is working very well for Certified Angus Beef and the American Angus Association, so we're going to do the same thing. And that's shown right here. Sterling Silver is a brand owned by Cargill. You might have heard of Cargill. We have a local Cargill facility in Freona, Texas. They said, you know what, we're having some fantastic success selling this Certified Angus Beef brand, but there are some cattle that are not black. And they meet all of these other criteria. They just happen to be red or tan or gray or striped or spotted. We're going to take that one criteria off. We're going to keep the other 9, and we're going to call ours Sterling Silver. And it worked. People said, yeah, we like that product. It eats well, has great palatability. We'll come back and buy it again and again. That worked well for Cargill. A couple of years later, Tyson says, hey, we're selling a ton of this Certified Angus Beef product, and this other thing is working well for Cargill. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to call ours Chairman's Reserve. And it worked well for Tyson. And then a few years later, JBS said, hey, this is working well for Certified Angus Beef and Cargill and Tyson. We're going to call ours 1855. And so this has just exploded. From one brand in 1978 to 93 today. Some of this is extremely recognizable, like Certified Angus Beef. Some of these you may not have heard of. Anybody even know who this guy is? Nolan Ryan. He has his own brand of beef. You will not find it in a market in the Texas Panhandle. Every one of these animals is fed in Palmer County, Texas. Every one of these animals is slaughtered in Freona, Texas. You won't find this product because it doesn't market well to our consumer. All of this fundamentally is sold in South Texas, and it sells like gangbusters. If I go to Washington, you can find St. Helens beef boxes everywhere. It all comes out of one feedlot, it goes to one slaughterhouse, and it markets well in Washington State, Oregon, and Idaho. You won't find any in the Texas Panhandle. Hereford beef, they tried the same thing the Certified Angus Beef tried. It's never caught on, and it's still a fledgling branded beef product, if you will. You can find some Certified Texas beef, and another local product, if you'll do some perusing on the internet, you can discover more about Heart brand beef. It's also a locally produced product, sells in very high quality restaurants. A more recent iteration of beef marketing is what I like to call criteria beef. And this is typically promoted on a single criteria. I'm going to move this cursor here so you can see that. So up in the upper left-hand corner, Nathan's Famous Beef Franks, the #1 brand of hot dog available, Nathan's Famous Beef. You notice this little seal. It says Angus, made with 100% Angus beef because they just taste better. So here's the reality. All of those cattle had a black hair coat. The legal definition in meat marketing of Angus is a black hair coat. Actually, it's a 51% black hair coat. So there's some marketing involved here, right? And this is a marketing presentation. So that's what that is. Over here, American Heart Association. Marketing to an elderly audience who are looking for a heart-healthy product, probably because their physician recommended them to eat a low-fat diet. Products that carry that check are 97% fat-free. And so that's marketed to that consumer. Lower left, you see genuine Texas beef. The marketing to Texas consumers. The reality is those animals were fed for 100 days in a Texas feedlot, slaughtered in a Texas slaughterhouse. Genuine Texas beef. Could have been born in any state, could have been stockered in any state, but they were here for 100 days. And over here, Hebrew National. This is a unique product marketed to the Jewish community. Okay? If you're buying this product, I don't know that I can see it, you're probably looking for a triangle K that will appear on the package, telling you that that product was certified as kosher by the Union of Orthodox Congregations, and it is fit for consumption. The other interesting part about that, you'll notice it's kind of in the slogan here, made from premium cuts of 100% kosher beef. The kosher community only eats the forequarter of an animal. They will not eat the hindquarter of an animal unless it has been completely deveined. That is a very laborious process, and so the rest of us end up eating the hindquarters because it's too labor intense to be economically feasible. A little more marketing, a little more contemporary and very vogue today is all natural beef. And I've got 3 labels up here that all meet the legal definition but mean completely different things to the actual consumer. So over here is the legal definition of an all-natural product. One that contains no added ingredients and are minimally processed. That's the USDA legal definition of all natural. And this product in the upper right corner would meet that today. Harris Ranch beef, that would be kind of a standard label for them. USDA certified natural black Angus beef. Fundamentally, all animals that are black hair coat could carry that label if they wanted to. The label in the middle, Nature Well Beef, is promoted by National Beef, a slaughterhouse of 2, not far from here, one in Liberal, Kansas, one in Dodge City, Kansas. That label technically means the animal did not receive an antibiotic or a growth-promoting hormone in the last 120 days they were in the feedlot. So they could have received it at day 121, but they didn't receive it in the last 120. And they get to carry that label. Now this one on the far left is probably what most people think is natural, an animal that never received an antibiotic or growth-promoting hormone at any point during its life. What we would call a never-ever program. So one thing I want you to realize in beef marketing is there are many iterations of what actually happened in contrast to what the consumer may or may not have thought happened. And that's just part of the marketing system. We have 2 more that I want to cover very quickly. What we call NHTC cattle, cattle that never received a growth promotant at any point during their life, non-hormone treated cattle. That was originally promoted by Country Natural Beef, a farmer to consumer program that started out in Oregon with Doc and Connie Hatfield. It was later picked up as part of a marketing program to the European Union, NHTC cattle. And you might have heard of Chipotle, Mexican restaurants. They also promote this as part of their branding of their products. We have organic beef, a very, very thin market because the animals must be fed organic ingredients. And the crops to certify as organic are somewhat difficult and very inefficient. And so that's quite a thin market, predominantly only in grass-finished animals. And then the last one is a grass finish label itself. And this is probably one of the more interesting ones. In reality, USDA 2 years ago retracted this as an official label because they were not able to certify it and or oversee it because of the multiple iterations in which this was occurring and the questionableness of how this was being marketed. So a little bit about beef marketing. With that, I don't know how many minutes we have left, but I think Dr. Almas and I would be glad to take any questions.
Yeah, wonderful. Questions? We have 10 minutes.
All questions for Dr. Almas, please.
You promise that you will answer.
Yes, sir.
I'll ask one, Dr. Almas, on the grass-fed versus your pen-fed feed, did you look at the economics and water consumption and actually economic sustainability of the grass-fed versus corn-fed?
No, we have not, but we can do that. I don't think that there are many grass-fed operations, you know, the stalker and the fed, so in between.
So can I add a little bit to that? So our friend Jude Capper, she's done the math. I don't know how many operations she's actually compared, but she's certainly done the math and published that in the Journal of Animal Science. And a grass-finished operation would be much more energy intensive in unit of energy to put into the system versus the unit of energy that comes out. It is also much, much more water intensive, unit in to unit out.
So my question is, if we run out of water, then does this region go to a grass-fed operation?
For 3 months a
Probably
year.
maybe after 100 years or something. I failed to mention that, you know, we have enough water for human consumption for this area for the next 100+ years. Because city of Amarillo, they bought the water rights, the groundwater rights in certain counties, they have not even started developing those. So sometimes the people, the population, they get concerned that, you know, if we have more livestock industry, then we will consume more water and there will be no water for human consumption. But actually they have enough water for more than 100 years. Because there is only 500,000 population in 26 counties. We have lot more beef animals and lot more hogs as compared to the human in 26 counties.
The low side on NRC, the low side feed efficiency on grass is 12.56 up to 14.32.
Well, they feed Jersey in a feedlot.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's what they list as a feed efficiency for feed stuff, so that energy for gain, which lays in the neighborhood of 48 to 52 NEGs on a grass, fresh grass, immature grass, not before the reproductive stalk comes up.
Dr. Perkin, that's a good question. I guess we need to look for some kind of research support or funding for that, but I don't think that there is much.
One of the things that I married a city girl, and that's a relative statement. That the discussions over the years have been, well, you know, cows just look like they're happy out on grass. The relative humidity, cattle, just for your information, cattle are extremely heat sensitive. Shirt sleeve temperature for a cow in a normal condition never exceeds above 65. They reach upper critical temperature at 82. And in all but 3 months out of the year, their thermoneutral temperature is 55. So they don't like, but they produce a lot of heat of fermentation in their rumen from the digestion of grass. So they literally have a furnace inside. If you give a cow a choice of going out and standing on grass or standing in a dry feed yard, they will go to the dry feed yard for the following reasons. When you're standing over grass, relative humidity is 70%. You're standing in a Texas feed yard, the relative humidity is less than 10. And the heat index, the thing that they give us on the weather, is a combination of heat plus humidity. 70% humidity on a day that's 90 degrees outside reaches the LD50 for cattle. So And the other issue is they have to deal with flies. If you ever watch cattle herded up in a corner of a pasture on dry grass, they're not over there, but they were literally herded there by a fly called Stomoxys calcitrans, also known as a stable fly. And those biting, aggravating dudes bring blood. They have 3 feet. They need a 3 feed for 5 minutes a day, and their bite hurts really bad. They seek shade to rest in, and grass and weeds are their shade. You put them in a feed yard, there is no shade, and the cattle get to live comfortably. That's my advertisement.
But another advantage is that, the grain-fed animals, they are better protein converters. With 1 pound of protein input, the output is 1.19 or 1.2 pounds of protein. So that's what,
Well, cattle produce their own protein, so they almost, you can feed them any sort of green grass and you over-met their protein.
Yeah.
We don't have any need to feed cows soybeans or tofu as humans know it. Because we have such an abundance of they just don't need much protein because they produce their own. They live on yogurt, folks. That vat they have is a green yogurt.
Any other question, comment?
Can you talk about the antibiotics and the growth hormones and stuff and how that affects meat consumption for humans?
Sure. So Andrea's question, can I talk about antibiotics and growth promotants and how that affects consumption? So the antibiotic-free and/or implant-free, growth hormone-free market is actually a very thin market, less than 5% of all beef production. In reality, it's probably less than 3%. You hear a lot about it in the media, and in surveys, people say, I don't want that. And in reality, they don't get that in their meat products. So let me reference withdrawal times. So if, and then let's back up to humans real quick. So if you have children, the year they go off to kindergarten is kind of a unique era in your household. Because when they go off to kindergarten, they intermix with every other kindergartner and they bring back viruses that you might not have seen for a few years. And the little ones get sick, and then everybody in the household often gets sick. So respiratory illness is extremely common in the human population, and the cattle version of that would be extremely common in cattle, particularly when they intermix and they're naive and they haven't seen that virus before. We call that BRD, bovine respiratory disease. The gentlemen sitting to your right are experts in that. Bovine respiratory disease would be the predominant illness that we would worry about, and that's where most of the antibiotics are used. So if we have an animal with bovine respiratory disease, that animal is worth something. When I buy that calf, it's worth about $1,000 today. So I don't want to lose my investment, and I want to take animal welfare into consideration. So if it's my child, I'm going to treat my child because I want them to feel better. If it's my steer or heifer, I'm going to treat them because A, I want them to feel better. B, I certainly don't want them to die because they're an investment. So I'm going to give them an antibiotic that's going to fight the bacterial infection that was allowed to take over after the virus set in. So it's very common to do that. When that happens, it typically happens when the animal is young and early in life. And then there's a withdrawal period. Common antibiotics today would have a 14 to 21 day withdrawal period. And that's early in their time. And then months occur, 8 months, 6 months, 4 months. Months occur before they actually reach a slaughter age and weight. That animal has long met their withdrawal. And so the antibiotics are gone from the animal regardless of what the label may or may not say. Okay? Second, back to growth promotants, we place those in the ear. The FDA, through rigorous testing for years, has discovered and reported and allow no withdrawal on a growth promotant. So we know that if we put this in the ear, we can slaughter the animal today, we can slaughter the animal tomorrow, because no withdrawal is needed. That implant is placed under the ear, and it is released into the bloodstream, and the hormones are negligible as compared to what is already in the animal and is what is already in your body. It is well below what we call the no hormone effect level, which is 3,000-ish nanograms of hormone. We're at many fold below that. So there's no harm in slaughtering the animal day of implant. And so regardless of what the label, again, may or may not say, there is no appreciable hormone in the muscle or antibiotic in the muscle. So what you hear in the media, what you might see at a restaurant or a retail market, it is marketing, which is what we're talking about today. Marketing. And it's product differentiation. So if I claim something, I'm trying to get you to take a look at my product. And if I claim it, there's the perception that everybody else may not be able to claim it, when the reality may be totally different in both cases. Fair?
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Before we conclude our